when you put yourself out there, your authentic self, it leaves you open for judgment. It leaves you open for criticism, all the things. But it's also how you find your people. It's how you find your community. It's how you find the ones that are going to be in your tribe.
Welcome to Direct Selling Shift, an exclusive podcast by DSN. I'm your host, Blake Mallon, and this is where direct selling high performers and experts share their most powerful shifts in mindset, skill set, and strategy to help you accelerate your business and amplify your impact. I challenge you to be present, open your mind, and let the shift begin. Welcome back to Direct Selling Shift. Super excited for our guest today. Such an extraordinary story. She is a single mom of three, originally from Kansas, now by way of Texas. Got her bachelor's degree in biology, spent 15 years in the hospital industry before having a truly inspiring health transformation, led her to becoming a huge wellness advocate, and ultimately to starting and launching her career in direct selling. Fast forward, she is currently the top earner in her company, a dynamic speaker, a true expert when it comes to social selling. Some even call her the $10 million mentor. Beyond business, she lives and loves a Western lifestyle. I have a feeling some stories might come out in today's conversation. And she is on a mission to empower others to achieve the same success that she has found and continue just to be a strong voice and strong advocate for our channel worldwide. Please join me in welcoming an incredible force of inspiration to the show today, none other than Robin Packard. Robin, how are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. Well, thank you for the time. So you're out in Texas.
Yes.
Robin, I got to warn you. So I'm in Southern California. I'm born and raised in Southern California. I've only lived in Southern California. So you got to fill me in on this Western lifestyle. I listened to a conversation and I heard all this like roping and riding and cutting and rodeo and ranching. So fill me in. We don't have a lot of that out here in Santa Monica.
Yeah, it's crazy. I just grew up with horses and I carry that into my adulthood. My children are all active. I lived on a ranch a long time. Now in Texas, we have cattle. We team rope. We show cutting horses, which is kind of hard for people to understand sometimes when they're like, "Oh yeah, we cut." I have no idea what we mean, but it's just
What
it's just
does it mean? What does it mean? Enlighten us for those of us that aren't out there in Texas.
well, it's literally they've been doing it for hundreds of years. But like if there was a herd of cattle and they needed to sort a sick one off, they would literally cut that one off to a doctor. And that's just carried forward and modernized and become a sport. And we love all things horses. It keeps me motivated to work all the time because my kids are passionate about it. It's inherently expensive. So just crazy. We live a crazy life of horses, cattle, all the things.
I love it. I'm probably like a lot of maybe people, not just in California, but during pandemic, we got absorbed into Yellowstone and then inspired to go to a dude ranch. So I started taking my family out to a couple of dude ranches. We fell in love out there on the ranch, riding horses. I got my littles 8 and 5, on horses. I tried barrel riding. It's a lot harder than people make that look. So
The Yellowstone movement. That's
it
what I
is.
call it.
It is. And I'm sure you obviously growing up that way probably laugh at all of us. But I actually think it's good because it's giving people a way to maybe experience something they wouldn't experience and see the fun and the beauty in it for sure.
I do think it's brought a lot of light to the industry in the Western world and got people to just learn that lifestyle. I love it. It's brought a lot to it's put a big spotlight on what we do. I think Yellowstone in that movement.
Yeah. What do you love most about the ranch life, the Western life, everything in that lane?
I think it's just like a slower pace. Like with what I do, like it's a hustle and that just lets me kind of go wind down. And there's just something about being around a horse or cattle that's just calming. I don't know. It's just like you said, when you do it, there's something about it. Like kids love it. It's just, there's something mysterious about a horse and all that. You can think you can control them, but at the end of the day, you really can't.
Yeah, I think that's part of maybe the allure. It's a beautiful thing for sure. And it is a different energy. And I think everybody, so if you're out there and join the Yellowstone movement, get out and experience it. And it's interesting. I want to obviously talk about what's going on in the channel in our conversation today, what you're doing to navigate as a leader. But let's go back real quick and maybe just learn a little bit about your story. So talk to me. I
Sure.
think I heard you spent years in the hospital industry and then from there kind of went to the other side of really being passionate about health and wellness and ultimately starting your direct selling journey. So kind of fill us in.
Yeah. So, I mean, I got a biology degree. I spent, years working on that. And then I got a med tech degree and was working in a lab. And over that time, I'd gained some weight. And obviously, I was looking for solutions for that. And I stumbled across a friend that had had great success. And I just, through trust, joined her. And they were like, you should be selling this, because I did have a great weight loss story. I originally lost 84 pounds and then went on to lose 100 total. And I would just say, oh, I couldn't sell anything. I literally used to work in a farm store that sold supplies, and I was like the worst salesman ever. And like I said, I have this biology degree. So when anyone would approach me about anything salesy, I was like, oh, I'm not a salesman. And I grew into belief of products and company. And it took going to a convention, which I don't know why, because I was doing all the things. I had 3 total college degrees and I have $64 in my bank account and not
Mm-hmm.
open to. I'm doing all these little side jobs, but I am completely shut down to the opportunity of direct sales. But I went to a convention, and I think it took that to show me these aren't sales people. I loved the culture, and that let me open my eyes to the business side of what we do. And then when I went from there, I just realized it felt just as good to help people with income opportunity as it did to help with their, health and wellness. And from there, it was just like wildfire once I opened my mind to it. Um, I hate that I know one of my fatal flaws is I'm really hard headed, and I see that in other people immediately in distributors. And I just want to like shake them because I see that myself in them.
How long were you a customer just enjoying the products and the health journey before you decided to pull the trigger and actually start to promote?
Probably 6 months. And really, still after that, they said, well, you should have a meeting. And I did that. And it was really baby steps into the water. And then I'll tell you what triggered like this mass movement in me is, like a lot of Americans, we had some credit card debt and stuff. And I was at this convention and I saw a girl getting a big check on stage. And I leaned over and I said, well, what do you have to do to get that? And my sponsor was like, a lot more than what you do. And that just triggered me. That's when the lightning struck for me, like how much income opportunity there is in what we do. And at that moment, I was like, I'm going to go build a team. I can do this. And that's when I was like, I literally wrote an inventory down of what I was good at and what I wasn't. And I was like, I have a lot of self development to do here, and just attacked it. I read the books, the things, all the things, trying to, because I was good with the science side of about anything. But, I just had zero sales experience.
Mm-hmm. Let's even dive deeper there. One, I just wanted to highlight that because for everybody listening out there, 6 months as a customer, and so often we go get customers on our products and services out there, and maybe we just mentally put them in the customer bucket. But here you are now, the number one, right, highest rank in your company, top earner in your company, and sharing your story of you were 6 months as a customer and got off to what many would say is not a fast start. Okay, let me go deeper there. Go back to when you were in that season. You were the customer at that first event. You were thinking about making the leap. You had all these things in your head, maybe keeping you from signing up and then accelerating. What were some of those like limiting beliefs? Some of that internal dialogue, some of the things in your mind that kept you from making the leap that maybe you had to overcome, and maybe you see right as a pattern now for other new people joining your community.
Right. Which, yeah, I mean, what you tell yourself in those days, that moment, is exactly the narrative that you're going to speak life into. I'm not a salesman. I'm not, wouldn't be good at that. I'm not a leader. My big deal too was I didn't want to be judged. like posting in those days with just tons of before and after pictures and stuff. That was really hard for me. I was a very private person.
Hmm.
So all those things were hard. But I think the biggest thing for me is I constantly was like, I'm not a salesperson. But what I hate about what I was saying about myself was the person I was talking about, the salesperson, isn't even what we do. I mean, I was thinking of this like the worst case scenario of a car salesman that you could think of. And I don't even know a person like that. I've never even met a person in this industry that acted like that. So I hate that that's what I was telling myself. But, I see that over and over and over when I didn't want to be that girl trying to sell anything. And then I just had to have this reckless abandonment of what people thought. Like
Hmm.
one day I was like, you have to, any person that does what we do, there's a moment where you just have to lay that down and not care what people think.
Was there a moment? I'm curious because I think a lot of listeners can relate to maybe thinking exactly those words that you're saying or something like that, right? We have some preconceived notion, some misconception, right? Some stereotype that we're afraid at the end of the day of judgment or what people may think of us. And there's probably a lot of people that's still holding them back, right, from going to their next level right now. For you specifically, what made that shift? Was it a certain moment, right? Was it a certain realization? Was it something that happened instantly or did it happen over time? Like, how did you get to the other side of that belief system?
Well, I definitely think the shock of seeing the amount the girl got on stage was an eye opener to me that that kind of money was even a possibility. So that was the biggest thing. But then I just, from that day forward, changed the narrative of what I was saying to myself. And that's what, I hate about the brand new person. It's generally not what other people are saying to them, it's what they're saying to themselves that's stopping
Hmm.
them. And people get so set, and myself included, in the comfortability of what they do that they're just not afraid to move or branch out at all. And I would say 99% of it is all in our head, the stories we're telling ourselves. Just at that moment, I was like, okay, I'm not going to care what people think. Generally what you're saying to yourself is much, much harsher than what anyone's actually thinking. And then most of the time, people aren't even thinking about you. They're
Hmm.
thinking about their own lives. And I just had to lay that down and decide I'm going to go after this. And I'm from that minute forward, I was like, I'm going to succeed at this. Although I had no idea really what that looked like or what that was going to entail. But just from that moment forward, I was like, I'm doing this. I'm going to. And now looking back, I'm like, people must have thought I was crazy because I was like, I remember telling someone, I'm going to do that. I'm going to go to the top of this company, which is so not like me. I feel like I'm a very humble person. I'm not boastful, but here I am, this girl that's has zero experience in this industry being like, I'm going to go to the top of this company. Like now looking back, that seems very bizarre, but that's what I started telling myself. I had to go from saying, I wouldn't be good at this to I'm going to go to the top. And that made the difference. And I just had to walk that out then from there
Hmm.
on.
And what you're saying is so true. And as you were sharing, it's in our own head. It's not even in their head. They're not even thinking about us, but yet that perception holds us back. I had a mentor share a quote with me a long time ago that hit my head when you were sharing this story. And I think it went something like, I'm not what I think I am. I'm not what you think I am. I am what I think you think I am. In
Yeah.
other words, we live in this perception of a perception that's all perception. You made a decision. You started telling yourself that you are going to go to the top, shifting your language. And you just said, I think you said and referred to yourself as you're a private person, right? You're a private person. You said you're relatively humble. Obviously, you share that you grew up on the ranch, kind of slower pace. And now in what you do, most people would think, well, you're a public persona, right? I mean, you're a public persona. You're a social media, expert. You've built a large community, a large following. Talk to me about that. Going from a self-identity of a private person to now being in this space that can feel very public, and maybe lessons you learned when you made that shift.
Yeah, that was really hard for me going from being so private. And I grew up with a very tough dad that was like, don't ever let him see you sweat. Well, that's great when you have a little girl amongst boys and whatever, or in high pressure situations. But in what we do, that doesn't work. You have to share your struggle or no one can relate to you. You have to be authentic. You have to put yourself out there, or again, no one can relate to you. And picture perfect is not attainable, not real. People can spot that fakeness right away, and they don't want that. So I just had to start like really making sure, like, do people know me? Can you feel who I am through my social media? And that was a struggle, and it took a while to get it right. And I'm not saying it's still right today. It's always evolving, but that was again some more baggage that I just had to lay down. Like, okay, because no one's purchasing from you, no one's joining your team, no one's going to let you lead them if they don't feel like they know you, like you, or trust you. Well, in the old days, if we're out walking up to 10 people, but like I said, I started on a ranch, I had to use social media to help build. I had very few friends even in the beginning on social media, and I had to radically change my thinking on that too and start really putting myself out there, which is hard because when you put yourself out there, your authentic self, it leaves you open for judgment, it leaves you open for criticism, all the things. But it's also how you find your people, it's how you find your community, it's how you find the ones that are going to be in your tribe.
I love the way you said that I want people to feel who I am through my social media. I think that's great, right? And it's a great way to frame a question for all of us, is what I'm putting out, showing people and allowing people to feel who I am. I think that's great. I've never heard it quite put that way. And as you're talking about this image of perfection that is a feeling in the world of social media the last few years, and it is a highlight reel, and everybody, even as authentic as we try to be, as real as we try to be, and I agree with you, that's what works. Still, when you scroll through your Instagram or your TikTok, it seems like you're seeing everybody's best, everybody's highlight, and it can lead to a feeling of, I guess, what's been called today, like this term of imposter syndrome, right? Where you're seeing everybody and you're seeing their best of 1%. And then we get in this comparison game of where you're at. And it almost has like a reverse effect. Instead of inspiring, right? It kind of, pushes us back or keeps us down. What are your thoughts on that? Did you experience that yourself? And even more so as you're leading your team, like, do you see that as a real issue? And what guidance do you have for people that are maybe being disempowered by what they're seeing online?
Yeah, I just like, I love to say real is rare, fake is everywhere. Just go be your authentic self. And definitely there's that imposter syndrome. I've several times experienced that. I had a girl tell me, I went to this Instagram training, and she said, because I said, well, we were talking about different pillars of our social media. And I said, well, that just doesn't feel like me or whatever. I feel like an imposter. And she said, well, just know that real imposters don't worry that they're an imposter. Just go do your thing. And for some reason, and she said it with much more finesse than I just did.
Mhm.
But, that did help me. And I do think that is the newer person or the lower level when they're building. That is a big, because they go from just posting whatever on social media to start like building this strategy. And I do think they get that. And, what makes me sad is most people would be successful if they just stay the course. But instead, they throw up a little bit of social media and don't get a big response. And when I do trainings, I literally, in my trainings, I post my first ever, like, for putting myself out there with my company and this stuff. And I was like, I had 5 comments and 4 likes.
Mhm.
It wasn't a social media smash by any means, but I played the long game and stayed in there, and you evolve and you learn, and when you know better, you do better, and it gets better and better. And we all have stuff that we go back and we're like, oh, that was, whoops, that was cringy, whatever. I had to pivot there. But, you know, I've heard a lot of other big leaders or mentors say, like, we were all doing the best we could at the time. We just got better.
I know we're talking a lot about social media, and that makes sense in the last more than few years, right? That hasn't been a thing. It's kind of been the thing. Obviously, through kind of the strange pandemic period, it was like the only way. For
Right.
you and your business and your acceleration, getting to where you are today, would you say, looking back, social media was the main strategy, the primary strategy, the only strategy? Like, what component and how did you utilize it then, and how are you utilizing it now?
No, I think social media is a part of what we do. I still think it's crazy to me because some of my biggest leaders still came from face to face, or it's just someone that I thought of or had built that relationship with, not in social media. I think just the world has changed so rapidly in the last few years. Social media has exploded. Not that it hasn't been there for a while, but it's definitely changed the game. I guess I like to say I try to be very multifaceted. That's part of it, but that's not all of it. There's still so much personal stuff that has to happen in what we do, especially with recruiting. I've just tried to really evolve on social media because that's where I feel like we can reach the masses faster.
Hmm.
But you know, people that only want to sit and, I don't want to say hide behind social media, but if that's all that they want to utilize, some of the very best people continuing that I recruit to this day weren't from social media.
So if you're starting like a brand new person today, let's say I'm just getting started in your community, what path do you put me on? Do you put me on a path on social, on content? Do you put on a path talking to relationships and kind of the in person? What directive are you giving and finding most successful today?
I wrote out a playbook that I felt like was for the brand new person to kind of be multifaceted. I'd be like, look, to me, what I want to see in a brand new person is I want to see their confidence get built immediately. I don't want them go get immediately kicked in the teeth and be like, well, I'm done. The best way that I found to get their confidence, obviously start in their warm market with their friends and family. And I say, look, sometimes your friends and family, they're the easiest and sometimes they are the worst. Let's start with the easiest and get a little confidence. Like, I want to see them get some wins there because then I can see their confidence really go up from there. So I'm like, let's start getting some content put up. And I live and die by the motto that a confused distributor does nothing, an overwhelmed distributor does nothing. So I really try to keep my onboarding very, very simple, very, very clean with simple action steps and simple goals. So that way that we get small wins. And I tell people when you're starting, well, the whole time you're doing this, you're going to probably do the same amount of work. It just matters on the way you deliver it. So if it's a post or if it's a phone call or if it's a Zoom, whatever, but just know each one of those has a higher success rate than the other. There's tiers of what always, like, a face to face is always going to be more successful than a post on social media generally on your return rate. So I just say if you're going to do the same amount of work, pick the delivery method that's going to get you the most yield, which face to face or a Zoom call or whatever. And then when you're dropping down into like getting into people's messenger or the down into an email, something like that, a text. So to me, I just like right off the bat, I would love to see them get some wins, get some confidence so that they can carry through.
I love that. So what I'm hearing you say is there's kind of like an order or a priority of communication styles
Exactly.
based on the results that we all want to have, a victory, a win. And you kind of tossed out a few of them there. How, if you were just to prioritize, this is the most effective, A, B, C, D, E, what would your priority be in terms of just communication?
Well, I'm always going to say face to face. And I know that's so old school and not always possible in the world we live in. But even if we're doing it on a conference call or whatever, where we can see, and I think that's because it's not that I can't be well worded, and we all project our own strengths and weaknesses on other people. It's not because I can't be well worded, it's because I'm so busy. I'm often don't take the time to be well worded. I just know with me and my heart, people feel it the most in a face to face setting or where we can see each other because then you'll hear the tone of my voice or my passion for something. Or if I'm to type something out, you're just not going to get that. So to me, that's always going to be the best. You're always going to get the highest return rate and excitement when you're talking somehow face to face. And then when you have to drop down into written, unless you're just very, very well written, I know Chat GPT, all the things now are helping people. Everyone's turned into like this master of communication. But I just think I literally am like, you're going to do the same amount of work. Let's do what the best return is for the brand new person and get some experience.
No, I love it. And I agree a 1,000%. I know if you're listening right now, it might sound simple, But this is huge. You can have huge impact on your business. And what I'm hearing Robin say is you want people to feel your energy, feel your passion, feel your belief, feel your confidence. And there's no way to transfer that in text. Doesn't matter how eloquent you are or how many times you prompted ChatGPT, right? So
Right.
I'm taking notes as you're writing this stuff down. It's like, if you can talk in person, talk in person. If you can't, video is amazing. We can talk in person
Yeah.
over video, over Zoom, over FaceTime. If you can't do that, voice, at least it's getting inflection and tonality. Like, use the voice notes. If you can't do that and you're going to text and DM, okay. But so much of our communication is going to be lost when you're not able to transfer that tonality. So if all you did is take Robin's advice and shift your communication to more of what can transfer your passion, you're going to get more results. And you might be listening and say, I know, but how many of you are still just stuck in the DMs, blasting messages and waiting for people to reply back? I see you shaking your head and breathing.
Yeah. I mean, every day, those people that don't want to untrack from that. And that's why I do love reels and TikToks and everything, because they can help show who you are in different things. And that was one of the big shifts in my social media is I had a girl look at my social media and she said, well, and this was years ago. She said, you have this very stoic boss babe, very harsh business personality. And I mean, it was crushing to me because I am a high functioning introvert. And it really was a blow because I was like, gosh, that's really what people are taking away because I'm really good hearted. I have huge empathy for people, all the things. But that's what was coming across on my social media. And so that's why I like lives and reels and different things. And that's when I was like, okay, I got to show these people my real personality because I mean, I am this like hardcore business girl, but at the same time, I'm also like a 12-year-old boy sense of humor sometimes that's ridiculous. So we just kind of put our real personalities out there. And I do like the influencer style movement. It's letting people see who you are. But some people are so afraid to put themselves out there, they just will not take that step. They want to stay in those DMs, like you said.
So often people feel like they need to be quote unquote extroverted in this business. And don't get me wrong, like if you're someone that gets energy and draws energy from being around people, this is like the best thing ever. We're talking to people, we're getting with people, we're sharing with people, we're creating communities of people. But I'm seeing more and more conversations of people who they're natural introverts that are just excelling and leading like yourself. So for the introverts out there, is there any guidance you want to give, right, to people that maybe are wired, right, the same way you are kind of as introverts? Any guidance you want to give? Any lessons that you've learned along the way for maybe that personality type?
Well, this isn't, I wish this was more profound, but I remember at my very first conference, one of the top leaders was very outgoing, and I almost disqualified myself right then and thought, oh, I'm not outgoing. I can't do this. I almost completely disqualified myself right off the bat. And I'm glad I hung in there. But I was more the type of girl that when you'd walk down the hall in the morning on your way to a meeting or something, that if someone looked up and smiled at me first, I then would say, if they'd smile at me first, then I'd smile back and say good morning or whatever. And then I thought, I know this is so kindergarten mentality, but I just remember thinking one day, what if everybody's just walking around waiting for someone to smile first? Why don't you just be the one to smile first and say good morning? And then also, too, the problem with introverts, and especially as you're seeing some success or maybe you're a top leader, if you're introverted, they will not just assume you're an introvert. They're going to assume you're stuck up or you're whatever. And I did not want that at all. And I think that was what really helped me overcome it. I was like, they're looking to you. How this might be that girl's first convention. And she's right now judging herself if she can do this. And say good morning, ask questions, make people feel comfortable. And then that was kind of my goal from then on, is to like make everybody feel welcome in this space, because it's not the world disqualifying people. It's that they're doing it to themselves. Let's not make that harder for them. So it just self-development and putting myself out there.
I think that's so important and great lessons. And just for clear communication, when we're using the language introvert and extrovert, It really means just how someone generates energy or loses energy, right? Sometimes people hear
Right.
introvert and it means like, oh, well, you don't care. You don't have a, no, I mean, introverts care. They can have a huge heart. Like you're hearing Robin say, huge compassion for people, want to help people, but they're wired right a little bit differently. And being around large groups can drain energy. We're extroverted people. You're around large groups, you get energy. So it's not about talent or a skill or how much heart or how much you care if you love people. It's really about just how you're wired for energy. And I guess one more question in that direction, Robin, have you had to learn to do anything yourself to create boundaries, right? When you're in a business of giving, helping people, and you love it, but maybe you find, right, as an introvert that it does drain you. Have you had to learn to create certain boundaries or anything that you've learned or developed to kind of keep your energy high to constantly show up at the level you want?
Yeah, that is such a good question because when I go to anything big or speak at anything, like I love the people and I want to hear all the things and I want to help and do all the things, but I literally will go back to my room just completely exhausted. And at that point, like I have to shut everything off, like no TV, no people. It's crazy when we started, like a lot of girls, we'd share several girls to a room. And it's not that I don't have fun with that, but like I can't do that anymore because when you're trying to operate on such a high, like I guess, frequency or, do all the things and be all the things and be on, like I have to shut down when I'm done and just be. I remember the first one convention where I actually spoke at, I had to go to my room and I literally laid with the covers over my head, just like had to just check out, be done. So I wish I was one of those people that I fed off their energy, but I'm just not. It drains me. It really does, but I love it.
And that's so important for people to hear, right? Because that's
Yeah.
probably like, I don't know what the statistics are, but it's probably like half the population. And you're
Yeah.
absolutely crushing it and leading a massive movement, a massive community, learning how to recharge. But I think it even goes beyond like the introvert extrovert conversation. The reality is, and I'm sure you see this in your team, this business attracts people who love people, people who believe in
Yeah.
people, people who want to help people, right? And so often I see people that give so much of themselves. They want to help, right? They want to contribute and they give to the point where their cup is no longer full enough to
Right.
show up as their best self. And I'm curious if you have any lessons, either again, from your perspective or things you teach, maybe leaders you're developing on how you make sure you do recharge or how you make sure your community and leaders recharge or things we can do to make sure we are operating. I think you said frequency at the frequency that we want. Any perspective there?
Yeah, I just had to learn to and try to teach people to set healthy boundaries because I know in the beginning I definitely wasn't healthy with boundaries. I didn't have any work boundaries. It was full throttle all the time, answer my phone. Didn't matter if it was 4 a.m. or midnight. Like I was answering, responding, building content, doing all the things. And at some point, like you'll just run yourself into complete burnout doing that. And so I'm not gonna lie and say, oh, I take all these days off because I still love to work. I just love what I do. And if I'm sitting there and it strikes me, I'm gonna work. And I think to build, you have to do that. But I think it is good to have healthy boundaries. I think it's good to have, the right tribe around you that's supporting you and can help respect those boundaries and help support you, and just self-care and simple things, getting enough sleep, turning your phone off. I just remember once, like I used to love to read and I got to a point where I couldn't even focus to read long enough and I was like, okay, I got to, because so much self-development comes from reading, that I was like, okay, I have to fix this. I have to at this time shut my phone off. This block amount of time is going to be for self-development, reading, all the things, and just healthy boundaries, I think. And that's something you have to learn and evolve into.
You mentioned personal growth and self-development. What has been your routine, right? What's your personal program? Has it changed throughout your career and how much would you say personal growth development, learning, developing is key to continuing to excel in this channel?
Oh, I mean, I think it's everything. I think it's everything because especially if you're leading, everybody's looking to you for ideas, looking for you to how you react to situations. I love to read, and that was probably what in the beginning I was an avid reader. Now, like I love podcasts just because Podcasts are more easily accessible. You can do that anytime, or you have a little block of time where you're maybe not going to sit down and read. I love podcasts. That's been my main source of everything. But it's crazy. Like I've read so many direct sales books, social media strategies, all the things. And I had a man I really respect say, you need to read the book called The Anatomy of Peace.
Hmm.
And it wasn't the easiest read, but The Anatomy of Peace helped me so much understand people, not take things so personal when people couldn't wouldn't succeed that you really wanted to or would quit or just whatever. I do think as a leader, and it's not a direct sales book, it helped me understand people because I often struggle. One of my flaws is definitely understanding people that don't think like me. You know, I'm very type A, very black and white is how it is. So that helped me a lot. Just it shifted my whole perspective in my, business and personal life.
I haven't heard that one. I wrote that one down. I love that. Anatomy of Peace. If you were to say two other must reads for anybody building a business in this channel, what are two other books that come to mind?
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, GoPro, Building Network Marketing Leaders. Is that right? It's been a while since I read that. There's so many good ones, so many good podcasts.
I love that. So we wrote those down. So there you guys have it. Something to add to the reading list. Now, Robin, you strike me as a very focused person. Would you call yourself like someone that, would you put focus kind of high on your skill set, or would you call yourself a pretty focused person?
Yeah, I'm very focused, very driven, once I say it, speak life into it, like I'm gonna run at it pretty hard.
Do you think that's natural? Have you always had that in you, or do you think that's learned?
No, I think I've always had it in me, and this industry really brought it out. It gave me like a goal to shoot for. Working in, I wouldn't say I wasn't corporate America, but in the medical field, if you call in sick, they're going to just bring in somebody else to operate your machines or whatever. And I think this brought my purpose in life with what I was good at, what I love, all the things. I do have a servant's heart. And I think this is just where let it shine. That's what I hate about, I don't think people really get about the direct sales industry. There are a lot of servant people. Those are the people that really, I think, shine. And if you go back to my mentality in the beginning, I thought, oh, it's just salespeople. People just want to sell me stuff. And that's not what I see. That's not what we teach. It's not what it's about.
I think that skill, that trait, that discipline of just the ability to focus, the ability to make a decision and just stick on a path. I mean, that's got to be one of, if not the main thing that separates high achievers versus everybody else in any business, entrepreneurship, let alone this channel. I'm curious your perspective on again, developing people. We might have someone that just joined and launched their business a week ago, right? We might have people that are in a plateau right now listening, or we might have people that are in an acceleration of growth season looking to take their leadership to another level. And I think everybody could benefit from an increased focus, right, on the path that we're on. Any tips you would give? Is there anything you do to kind of put the blinders on, eliminate the distractions that seem to be on demand everywhere these days, and actually stay a course long enough to get a result? Any tips?
Well, I think this is the business of empowering people, and that takes a lot of cheerleading. It takes a lot of pointing out their strengths. And I was blessed. I had people do that for me early on. I always tell people, I wish our careers were videoed, but people only get to see you speaking on stage or know that persona, that end result persona. Like, I wish you could go back and show some of these big, just huge personas, like what they look like in their beginning, what their first three-way call looked like, what their first time on stage speaking looked like. And then I think people wouldn't judge themselves so harshly and be like, yeah, there's so much room. I mean, they would laugh at all of our firsts of everything, but you don't get to see that. You get to see Z or further down the trail. So what I just try to do in that brand new person is build them up. Like I said, try to get them some wins, get their confidence up, and point out why you are a leader. Because I don't know many people, or I don't see it as a leader. People come in and be like, I'm going to be a rock star at this. I don't see that. I see people come in scared. See people come in with the work ethic, but not the know-how. And we're just in the business of, we have to empower them. We have to show them and help really build that up, because They all have those self-limiting beliefs, and I like to know what those are. What do you think of yourself? I'm big on inventories. Like, tell me what you're good at. Tell me what you struggle at. Tell me, because what you're good at, we don't need to work on that very much. What we need to work on is this list of what you don't think you can do. That's what we need to be tackling.
I'm smiling as you just gave me like a mental image of every successful achiever, entrepreneur, business person across the world. And imagine if all of our social media was just our first couple days, weeks, or months. That would be amazing. I would subscribe
Yeah.
to all of those channels.
Yeah,
Um,
like, are you so embarrassed when you see a Facebook post from 10 years ago and you just literally like, I'm so embarrassed for you? Like, I wish as leaders we could put those moments up and be like, hey, this is us. Like, you're fine. You're doing way better than we were when we started. I always am like, if I can do this, you can do this.
You've talked a lot about how we wear a lot of hats as leaders and coaches, right? You said sometimes we have to be a cheerleader, sometimes we're diving in. And you have a large community, right? I mean, you have a large movement. And any leader that stays the course long enough, you end up building a team. You get to a point where you can't personally be with everyone. You want to, you wish
Right.
you could, but like you can't. I'm curious from your leadership perspective, where do you decide where your time goes in terms of who you're investing time, energy, coaching, mentoring into? You said you take inventory. Is there a certain trait you're looking for? Is there a list you're looking for? Are you doing it by the numbers? Is it by feel? How do you decide who you're reaching down and raising up?
For me, that's a lot. My brand new people, those are the people that need you the most. Those are the people that you're going to have to hold their hands the most. That's why I think I see other leaders that run their teams more in a dictatorship fashion. And to me, that's just never going to work because you have one person that you can't, as one person, service that many people. Where if you're building other leaders as they come up, they don't need you as much. They need you to check in. They need you to talk them through still their goals and different things. But it's that brand new person that's really going to need you. And that's the hardest because you can pour into people. And we all know the stick rate on those brand new people, isn't always great. It just depends on the person. But I look for someone with a really strong why, because those people tend to be gritty. If their backs, some of my biggest and best money earners, their back was against the wall. And I got to give a shout out to the Western community. I think a lot of people in the agricultural world that grew up on ranch, they're just accustomed to hard work. I'm not saying that's
Mhm.
what it takes to be successful, but you have this community of people that just grew up inherently having to work very hard in their life and they're used to it. So, and then I look for people that are coachable. It's bad because you get somebody that is a hard worker, but if you can't ever get them to think bigger or move beyond that poverty mindset or step out of their comfort zone, there's just not a whole lot you can do, no matter how great a leader you are.
I think those are great. That's a great perspective. So people that are willing and wanting to work hard. And I know you said you won't say that's needed. I'm just thinking, I don't think anybody is going to achieve anything great long term, right? Long term without consistent effort, consistent hard
Yeah.
work, and the ability to be coachable and learn. I think that's great advice. I know you've been in this channel for a little while, right? You've seen seasons, right? You've seen evolution, you've seen kind of shift, right? Pun intended. I'm curious from your vantage point right now, with where the world's at, where the channel's at, right? Post pandemic era, all the things that are happening, social media and where that's gone. You mentioned ChatGPT. Now that we got AI and we got all this shift in the air,
Yeah.
what are you seeing and feeling in terms of just the channel abroad? What shifts are you seeing? What's happening today that's maybe different than yesterday? Where do you think we're going for tomorrow? What's your perspective?
I just think that we had a little rough patch, that we had a lot of people come in during COVID. People were home, people were scared, they were looking for other income. I feel like it was industry wide, but I know definitely within our own company, we had like a set of leaders come in that they came in through a time where we were just growing insane amounts and it was easy for them and they never really had to learn like any foundational principles of leadership or how to lead, how to build. It just came so easy during some of that COVID time. And it was frustrating for me because I couldn't get some of those leaders to stick.
Mm.
When it shifted, and it felt like to me it shifted hard, they didn't have the stick power because they'd only known easy.
Hmm.
And so I think it's been great. I feel like a huge momentum come back and just a wave of enthusiasm again, and people that will step out of their box, changing the way that they do business or lead with the business or different things. A lot of good things that, for a while I felt like kind of morale was kind of down. It's really hard to get me down, but I did see it in amongst different people. But it's been exciting for me because I feel like a wind of change coming back. uh, the owner of our company gave, a talk that meant a lot to me, because he said this industry's always been under attack for one reason or another. And he went clear back 50 years. And I think if you just know that, and you know that there's always going to be obstacles in everything we do, then you're more apt to just roll with it and change and pivot when you need to pivot. So that was helpful for me. That's what I've seen lately. Like, we are introducing things we've never used before. There are new tools, different things. But at the end of the day, yes, the shiny objects have changed, the tools have changed, but the foundation is the same. The work ethic, the doing the do daily, the putting yourself out there, being multifaceted, not just in one thing.
What are some of those tools that you're seeing people gravitate to right now?
Oh gosh, well, just like all the AI, different stuff like that. I'm seeing people that like could not write a caption to save their life to now they're pretty profound. Different things like that. I use some pretty simple tools too, but yeah, I mean that's the biggest one that I've seen lately. And then just different way of presenting, I think, was the hardest for my team to adapt to. I do feel like the world is graphics blind. People want it delivered more personable, more in different ways. So that's what I'm seeing.
I think that's interesting. What are some of the new ways or new methods, you said more personable, that you're seeing work, right, or be effective?
Well, I was seeing people really struggle with just posting and not getting a return. And like I said earlier, like I can't write a post, even with Chat GPT or whatever I need to use. I can't write a post that truly shows you who I am. But if I get on and go live, I can portray that, especially with people and just girls like me. And like I said, I had zero experience in the industry. To get them to do that and then build their audience from there. We would all love to recruit this direct sales superstar. That's not my reality on the daily, is getting to do that. So
Hmm.
I'm more, I feel like in what I do, I'm building more people from A to Z. Sometimes I get someone that's already at M and can help them from there. But I start with a lot of very base level people.
I love that. And I love what I'm hearing just in your story is you don't have to be great at everything. Love you said, hey, it doesn't resonate for you to write. So you're going live so you can share your heart. And for everybody out there, whether it's going live or you're on TikTok or you're on Instagram or you're doing posts or you can communicate in the way
Yeah.
that you feel and things you love, you don't have to do it all. You just do what resonates with you, what is you, and get people to feel, right, the mission you're on. So I love that. Thank you for sharing that. You've heard kind of through our dialogue that I'm kind of fascinated by the concept of just shifts in general. And I want to get to some closing thoughts and let you share anything that's on your mind or your heart for all of our audience and listeners. But before we do that, I'd love to do just like a quick rapid fire round. There's no right or wrong answers. These are easy. It's
Okay.
the first thing that comes to your mind. But there's similar questions I've asked most of the guests, and it's really in this lane of shifts. And I won't share my whole backstory, but I had a defining moment through this channel when I was 19 that profoundly changed the trajectory of my life. I mean, it put me on a path of becoming an entrepreneur. And what I learned in that moment is like a single shift can have power. It can change everything. Like the right shift
Yeah,
at the right time in that moment, it really can change things. That's why I'm so
absolutely.
fascinated with collecting and asking the questions of like, what was that moment? Where was that shift? What
Yeah.
did that look like? So I'm curious for you when it comes to your like professional life. So business, entrepreneurship, where you're at in direct selling, right? A $10 million mentor. What's like the one shift moment, one moment in your whole journey that was a turning point? You went from telling yourself one thing to telling yourself something else. What was one of those moments for you?
Maybe one of the first times I spoke on stage is where I started to really step into that leadership role and realize, like, this sounds kind of dark, but nobody's coming to save you. It's up to you to build your brand. It's up to you to build your team. No one's going to do it for you. And I think one of the first times that I really felt ownership in this industry of, like, I am people's lives, I'm directing their business. Like, just a profound moment for me was maybe one of my first times on stage, realizing people are looking to you to mentor them. You better be equipped for that. You better do the work to prepare for that. You better do the self development to take that platform seriously.
I love that. I mean, such an easy way to get out of our own head instead of worrying, am I enough? Am I good enough? Right? Did I get enough? Ask ourselves, well, who can I help? Who's relying on me? Who can I make an impact on? I think that's
Right.
awesome.
Take it
So,
off of yourself and put on them. I'm scared too. And that's weird because people think that I'm like this robot or fearless. And I try to be fearless. But I also, like, I love how you say, like, what's the moment? What's the switch? Because I have this mental deal I do in my room every time I speak or at anything big. I'm like, okay, I can be scared in my room. I can have doubt. I can nitpick my speech, my presentations apart, myself apart. But the moment I close this hotel door behind me, we're not allowed to think up. Like,
mhm.
that is the minute, like, you become a robot. That is done. And now where it's like full speed ahead. That's just like some weird mental practice I picked up.
No, I think it's great. You're giving me chill. It's game time, right? It's game time.
It's game time.
It's the game.
There's no room for fear. There's no more room for doubt. That all stays in your room. And now, like, this is what we're doing.
Someone turned me on recently to another book. For those of you guys that are listening, you can add it to the list, but I think it's called Alter Ego. But it really is a book that breaks down the science behind what you just described, like flipping the switch, stepping into your best self, and showing up for the game, whatever that game means in your
Yeah.
life. So I love
Yeah.
that. Same question. So personally, so that's your shift on a professional level. What about just Robin personally, you on your life journey? What's one of the single biggest kind of mind shifts you've had that have led you to becoming who you are today?
Well, this seems a little silly, but the first time I ever posted my before and after weight loss picture, I literally had to turn my phone off. This is back in the days, super private. I was ashamed of the weight I had been. I didn't want people to think, oh, she thinks she's perfect now. Like, all this horrible monologue that I created in my brain. And I remember somebody said to me, well, yeah, okay. What if 99 people think all those horrible things you just said? But what if one person looks at that and it gives them hope and they decide to join you on your journey or get help? Isn't that enough? And at that moment, I was like, yeah, that's enough. The one is enough to offset the 99. And I still feel that way today, you know, because no matter what you do, you're going to be criticized, judged, whatever. And as long as I'm helping that one person, that's just got to be enough for me. And I've just learned that works for me. So anytime I'm about to post something that it's a little out there or whatever, I just, right before I hit that, I'm like, just looking for that one. I'm just looking for that one.
So powerful and so true, because we all get sucked into the haters and the critics, and they're always out there. But to remind ourselves, one person, the right person, that's all that matters. That's so powerful.
Right.
Last question, more of a visionary question. And I kind of think
Yeah.
about the power of the channel. And one thing I love about this show and being partnered with DSN is we really do have access to what is just an amazing industry, an amazing business channel that so many people are participating in. I think the
Yeah.
DSA last year said that direct selling was like over $170 billion in retail sales. You had
Wow.
60 of that just here in North America, somewhere over 114 million people that are participating as distributors, coaches, consultants, promoters. Like, the community across the world it's massive. So,
Yeah.
Robin, my question, this is kind of like a visionary, maybe an idealistic question. I think of what would happen if all 114 million across every company, product, brand, right? We're all kind of united in a direction. So my
Right.
question for you is, if you could gift all 114 million distributors, consultants, coaches around the world with one mind shift, one mental shift, right? One perspective shift instantly, what would you give them?
I think the most powerful thing that we fight is our own head. And if, just like you said, all those self limiting beliefs, if we could somehow get people to identify them and let them go and just start fresh, the amazing things that people can do. And I've seen people do, and maybe it's self imposed. Maybe someone said that to them before. I don't know where those come from, all the things, but what a powerful world we would be if we could all set those down, because that's what weighs people down from reaching their full greatness. I believe it's not generally anything anybody else is saying, it's what they're saying to themselves. So just to speak life into their business and speak life into other people.
Beautifully put. I want to get your closing thoughts and anything on your mind or your heart. It's already been such an awesome conversation talking about your story, talking about overcoming limiting beliefs, right? That we all have getting started. The perspective of a customer, someone maybe that's buying your product or service right now, could be the future top income earner, right? And you can do it as an introvert or an extrovert, learning how to set boundaries, right? Overcoming this whole imposter syndrome conversation. I love that you help dive into actual tactics, right? Social strategy, what that looks like today. That there are new tools, but the fundamentals are always true. What makes this work, right? Working hard,
Right.
coachability. I mean, so many nuggets from our conversation today, and just being authentically you, right? And being able to share that. I'm going to remember that line of, does this show people or make people feel right who I am? I think that's great. We've covered a lot of ground, but is there anything else on your mind, anything else on your heart, any kind of closing thoughts you want to share before we round out today's conversation?
And I just really love this industry, and I want to see it keep growing and all the fun things. Just, I know a product user isn't the fastest way to build a business, but I always just like to tell people, hey, just know you have, especially in my company, just know you have a Robin Packard underneath you sitting there on products. Keep speaking life into that person. And I was so blessed that I had somebody doing that, because I guarantee I wouldn't be here today if someone wouldn't have just been saying, hey, you'd be good at this. And when you're recruiting people, it's not always just about finding these social media geniuses or these direct sales huge personas. You have all these people sitting there in a pool that just need life spoke on them and told why they'd be good at this and encouraged to do this.
Such good advice. Robin, you are an amazing example. Thank you for what you're doing for our channel and our industry. Thank you for being someone that shows us what is possible, no matter who we are, where we come from, or what we're allowing to stand in our way right now, and just all of the nuggets and wisdom and perspective you shared today. We do appreciate all of that. And if you're listening out there, I know you got value from today. So if you did, let us know. The only reason Robin's taking time out of her team and her family and her boys right now is to add value. So if something resonated, please drop by the podcast. You can leave us a rating and review on Apple or on YouTube, all the places. And I say it all the time, a shift really is a gift. You have the power to share this conversation, and you never know, as Robin said, who that next Robin Packard is. It might be someone that you have right now. And part of what we talked about today could be that shift that they need to go to their next level. So please share. DSN puts out some amazing clips all over their channels to make it easy. And you can drop by directsellingshift.com to let us know what you want to hear in future episodes. Let us know topics on your mind. If you want to nominate guests, you can do all of that there. Robin, we appreciate you. Thank you so much for today. And thank you for everything you're doing for our community as a channel worldwide. We appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing such highlight to our industry.
I love it. Thank you, guys. We'll see you next time.